Okie doke. I think this should be working now. So this is eSail. It is a sailing simulator. And the boat, I don't know, it's probably, I don't know, it looks like it's about 27 foot or something like that, maybe. Something like that. It has just go over some of the parts of the boat or pieces of the boat. It's got a mast for the main, which runs up inside a track that's on the main here. And then you have a rolling jib sheet or genoa. If it goes past the main mast a little bit, it's called a genoa. And then these lines that run down in a boat, of course this is a simulator, but whatever. In a boat, a regular boat, it would work the same way. If you pull on both these lines or pull on one of them hard enough, this will come unfurled. So it'll come unwound, and to wind it back up, you use this blue line. So these red lines you see here are called sheets. This is a furling line, I believe that's what they call it. We can click on this. It's a jib furling line, and the sheet is also a line, technically is a line, that's connected to the sail or the sheet itself. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click on this eye, which centers me in the back. This is the steering wheel. You have I forget what this thing's called, the throttle, and then your compass, which is mirrored here. Life preservers, things like that. Stays, these wires are stays for the main mast. And then, again, these are the jib sheets. So so what I'm going to go ahead and do here is click on this, and I'm going to close this jammer. These are all also called friction brakes, I think, or brakes. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to the port jib sheet. This is the port side of the boat. This is the starboard side of the boat, fore and aft. So if we're wanting to navigate around the boat or identify where parts of the boat are, we're going to use those terms. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put the main sheet, the main sail halyard on here. And the halyard is used to raise the sail. I put that in the wrong mode. So these modes, don't really have to worry about these. These are winches, and they help crank on the rope. So when you wind a rope or a sheet or a line around one of these winches, it will allow you to create friction on the rope to be able to let you haul it in. And then you can also put cranks on these things. So in this simulator, you click on the crank and it'll grab a crank and it'll put it on there. But in real life, you would put a crank just like that into it. Obviously, your arms would be connected to your hands here, but here we have disembodied hands working this. So now what I'm going to go ahead and do now is I'm going to raise the main sail, and let me zoom out a little bit so you can kind of see that happening. And I'm just cranking on this crank to do that. You could pull on it. I've raised a main sail by hand before. Just depends on the sail. And the main sail is up, and then we're going to close the jammer. That's what they call it here, is a jammer. So I'm going to call it a jammer. Again, the halyard is the thing that lifts the sail up in the air, and it would be connected up here at the top and then run down inside of the mast or on the outside of the mast and be connected back here. Just a line running back here just to raise the sail. That's all it's used for. There's another line that is used to raise and lower the boom, which is this part of it, bottom part of this. And then we're going to have some more sheets. Again, these are the jib sheets, but this is the main sail sheet here, and this is a traveler which can be adjusted if you want, which I'm not going to do that here. But and this is a topping lift, or what's called a boom vang. This is the gooseneck area, Alright, so I'm going to click on this again. So I've got my engine on, so I'm going to turn that off. I've got 17 miles or 17 knots of wind coming from basically straight in from the front of the boat. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn into that real quick. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to raise the jib, or unfurl the jib sheet is what I'm going to do. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here. And then I'm going to go ahead and drag on this, and this should pull out the jib sheet. If both of these hands do that. Oh, I have to unclutch it over here, so I have to take it out of the clutch. No, I don't think so. Maybe I do. I don't know. Let's see here. I don't know how this works here. There we go. Now it's coming out. You can see it coming out up there. So that's the jib sheet, or jib sail. And this is the jib sheet, the port jib sheet, and this is the starboard jib sheet. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set that wind marker right there, essentially. So I'm going to steer to port and get this wind marker right there, and you can see the boat's heeling over pretty good already. And then I'm going to trim for that. I'm going to let that out a little bit. And I'm going to engage my autopilot so I don't have to continue to steer while I'm trimming. And then this guy can just, we can actually drop this rope. From this side you can just drop the rope, and then I'm just going to make these hands go up here just for the second, just to get them off that rope. Just to illustrate, you can drop that rope. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to set this, so I'm going to just put it in the self-tailing mechanism, and I'm going to put these hands back up here on the main sheet, which again is this part underneath here, and we're going to let out the main sheet a little bit, just a little bit, and then we're going to turn when we're done doing that. And I have to open the jammer, and that will pop open like that if you're not careful. I should have had tension on it technically. I would have had tension on it. And it's going to do that to me. It's going to keep popping free, so I need to put it on a wrap and then pull on it. That gives me more power. And that's, I want it about right there. I want it sticking out a little bit. And then I'm going to cap this off. Now I'm going to come in a little bit on this guy here in the back. And it's going to want me to put a crank on there. It's going to be a little finicky about it. That is pretty hard to pull in some boats. And now what I've done is I've trimmed myself for a beam reach. So now what I'm going to do is turn off the autopilot, and I'm going to turn into a beam reach, which is going to put the wind basically dead to starboard. And then you can see the speed increasing now. Boat's sailing nicely. And this is a pretty comfortable sail. It's not, you're not heeled all the way over like you would be if you were sailing this way, and you get pretty good speed. So I'm going to lock in my autopilot. Now if we're looking at our progress, I don't know if we're shown on this map. I think it should be on here somewhere. I don't know where. The charts on this thing are not great for this program, but regardless, I think there's some land in here somewhere. There's some land. So what we're going to do is we're going to do what's called attack. And attack, the wind is coming this direction onto the boat. So it's coming off of the starboard side, so we're on what's called a starboard tack, because the wind's blowing over the starboard side of the boat, the right side of the boat. And we're trimmed for the direction that it's coming. So if the wind was coming straight from ahead, we'd be in irons, what's called in irons. And so you don't want to stop when you turn into the wind. So what we're essentially going to do is we're going to turn 90, almost 90 degrees to the wind to bring the wind coming over the port side of the boat. So again, the wind's coming in this direction. We want the wind to come in this direction. We'll essentially just be turning around and doing a 180 back to where we're coming from, and that's fine. But we're going to do that tack now. So I'm going to click on the eyeball. Okay, so the first thing that you do to do a tack like this, especially when you're trimmed for a beam reach, is you're going to bring in the mainsail. So I'm going to click on this. And it's going to put the crank on there. It's going to take its sweet time doing it. And I'm going to go ahead and crank this guy in. And that's just so you don't get a jibe, which is the boom swinging all the way across the boat. Now the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to get this guy onto this winch. And I need to get this guy on this winch. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put, now you notice my speed slowed down considerably here, and that's just due to, I'm going to turn off the autopilot, that's due to the fact that I pulled in the main sheet, which is, if normally what I would be doing is doing this faster, but this simulator I have to click on stuff, so this would normally be done fairly quickly. You'd probably put these hands on here, or get this rope on here if you were doing it single-handed. And you'll notice here that I'm going pretty slow, but I'm still headed up into the wind. The wind's coming this direction from me. So now we're going to do that tack. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to go ahead and call helms lee, which means that we're getting ready to turn into the wind. And the second this luffs, I'm going to tell this guy to drop it. So it's moving around, which is kind of annoying. I'm going to tell him to drop it, and then I'm going to crank in on this sheet like this. And then I went around too far. You'll notice here I went around too far here. It's just the simulator is kind of weird. And so I'm going to go ahead and bring that in. It's probably going to want me to put a winch on it. Maybe I can do this without. That's about as tight as it's going to get. And then what I'm going to do now is this guy can actually let go of this rope because it's not needed. And it's loose because it's this line right here. And it's called the sheet. This is the port jib sheet. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to let this guy out. Oh, I got to turn off the jammer. Be careful not open the mainsail jammer, and then we trim out a little bit like that. Now we'll go ahead and close the main sheet jammer. I mean, technically you could just leave this on the winch. Would probably be the best thing to do. And the boat that I was learning on just recently, in eSail 103, it just had it literally had a jammer, one of these jammer looking things. I guess those are blocks though, but it didn't have the brake, the friction brake. It just had a little toothed cleat that caught it. All right, so now that's tacking through the wind. So we're going to do it one more time, hopefully a little bit faster. So this time we're going to ignore the jibe of the mainsail. I'm just going to let it do that because I don't want to fiddle with sucking it up into that position. And I'm going to go ahead and get this guy back on here. Go ahead and stick on some wraps. Get my autopilot on so I don't get off. Now this guy, so helms lee, Means I'm going to be bringing it through the wind. So the second that goes, I want to kill this. I want to make sure I don't go too far. I'm centering back up, and then I'm going to crank on this. Autopilot back on. And then I'm going to stick a crank on this. So again, that was a tack. And then go ahead and crank that down. Get that jib sheet in, or Genoa in. Alright, so that looks pretty good. So adjust my heading just a little bit. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and I'm going to tack I'm going to turn away from the wind. Now what's happening here, I'm going to go ahead and get it on a beam reach, which means off the side of the boat, so the wind is coming straight at us here from the side of the boat. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a jibe. And a jibe is where you turn through the wind blowing behind you. So the wind will sweep around behind the boat this time as I'm turning. So now I'm going to go ahead and start that turn now. So jibe ho is what you call out. Instead of helm's lee, you call jibe ho. And pretty much the same thing happens. So you see that whipped around like that. I need to get this guy on this rope. I need to take this one free. That needs to be cut free for it to swap over. There we go. Go ahead and get a crank on this guy. And crank that down. Gotta watch the course. And there we are. We're pretty much set up. We're not totally trimmed for a beam reach, but pretty close. So that was a jibe. So we jibe through the wind. So again, one more time. And a jibe through the wind. So I'm going to go ahead and get this guy, his crank on. Again, we would really suck up this sail. I just don't want to do it here. You can see how far over we heeled doing that. And then you want to have this guy drop his line. And then I'm going to go ahead and crank on this guy. Just like that. And that's it. The only other thing that I didn't discuss are these reefing lines. Reefing lines are designed to pull down the sheet, the main sail, down to make it shorter. And then the kicking strap is for this thing right here, which just pulls down on the boom. That's all it does. And those are all the controls in eSail. Hopefully this was interesting. I'm Cord Campbell, and I'll catch you on the flip side.